family friend of mine used to work in private wealth management. One of her jobs was diversification of her clients' assets in the stock market. And out of nowhere, she gets a call from a representative of one of her very big private clients to sell all the stocks of a big airline and move the liquidity somewhere else. No buts, and if needed, they could sell in up to 5% below market as long as the shares are sold quickly. This was extremely weird as the stock price of the company was pretty stable, and specifically, this client's portfolio was heavily hedged with this stake. But she didn't think much of it. Oftentimes her clients did this for personal reasons, such as having a bad experience on a plane of the company or etc. 2 days later, one of her colleagues that she shared this peculiar story told her that the airline stock price started slowly but surely falling. Some people were selling off their shares too, which were gladly bought up by the market at increasing prices. The next day, AA Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the WTC in New York. The stock market was closed for another week. I had a customer come into my work wearing a trench coat and a Ushanka type hat. Looked to have something strapped to his shirt under the coat with duct tape. He left, and I messaged my wife about how creepy he was, and that I thought he had a bomb on his chest. He came back 15 minutes later and thanked me for being polite, started talking about religion, and Obama being the Antichrist. Turns out he was on his way to shoot up the Planned Parenthood, and he managed to kill 3 people. I'm a fairly small guy. I stand around 5'5", and the most I've ever weighed was around 150 pounds. About 6 or 7 years ago, I didn't have my license, despite being far old enough to drive, but a good buddy of mine wanted to hang out. He too did not have a way of transportation, so we decided to both walk towards one another and meet in the middle. We would both be walking 5 miles. It was 3 a.m. on a cold winter night, and I was wearing a black jacket with my hood up. About 2 miles into my hike along the main road, a car pulled into the parking spot of a home I was passing, just a few feet behind me. He wasn't entirely into the driveway, almost halfway hanging out into the road. I half expected it was just a kind of stranger wanting to give me a ride, but I wasn't about to take any rides from anybody. I kept pacing forward and ignored the car behind me, expecting them to roll down a window and shout at me. It didn't happen. The car just sat at the edge of the driveway, running but completely dark inside, to the point that I could barely make out the figure of a large man. I don't typically get frightened by much, but something in the air made me tense up, and my heart kind of dropped to my stomach. I stopped and turned to look at the car. I had a feeling that the person driving was watching me intently. The figure in the car was definitely facing me. I could see the reflection from his dash bouncing off of his eyes. I stared back. I figured he was about to yell out to me, but he just sat quietly in a strangely menacing way that I've only ever seen scenes in movies play out. I kinda did a wave at the figure, letting him know I saw him, and waited for some type of communication in return. but he didn't budge. He just stared intently. I returned to pacing away, slightly brisker. After just a few moments, I could hear the car slowly roll in reverse, so I turned to face it. But it kept pacing backwards. The car kept creeping, slowly. I pulled down my hood and stood still again, waiting for him to pass me. But instead, the man slowed to a stop beside me. The passenger side window rolled down and the man and I met eyes. No words were exchanged at all. And before I could even let out a hello, the man grimaced and accelerated away at a decent pace, almost as if he was disappointed by what he had seen. It doesn't seem like much from how it reads, but I'll never forget how tense that interaction was for me. I've not felt anything like it since.